Yeah, so I think AI in general has great potential if it's developed and applied correctly. I think that applications like Cogensus that are geared to improve loneliness and or social connection have an opportunity to provide those insights around a myriad of conditions, not just cognitive decline.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is an opportunity to improve care management for patients, to help clinicians with data and insights that will hopefully reduce their burden and burnout.
Welcome to Women Disrupting Tech. My name is Dirk Jan Upkes, and on this podcast I give the women who work in tech the platform they need to inspire and empower each other. Join me on a journey into the world of entrepreneurship, funding, biases and role models to discover the strategies for success in the tech industry. In other words, how women can disrupt tech. Are you ready to listen? Hey, welcome back to Women Disrupting Tech, and thank you for tuning in to episode 112. Did you know that loneliness increases your risk of serious health problems by 59%? Loneliness is one of the most overlooked drivers as we age, and women are once again hit the hardest. They live alone more often, they provide the majority of caregiving hours, and they tend to delay care for themselves. That's where my guest today comes in. Her name is Raju Joshi, and she's the co-founder and chief clinical officer of Cogensus. Cogensus is a health tech startup that uses AI to support people experiencing loneliness and early cognitive decline, as well as their caregivers. Raju knows this problem personally. She lost two senior family members in the same year, and even though she has 30 years of experience in healthcare, she saw how ill equipped even the best prepared families can be. In this episode of Women Disrupting Tech, Raju and I talk about why loneliness hits women harder and what the long term effects on health are, how Cogensus uses AI to listen for what caregivers often miss, what ethical, inclusive AI in health looks like in practice, and why building trust with users starts with usability, not with features. It's a rich conversation about loneliness, cognitive decline, technology, and much, much more. And my biggest takeaway was how to have a better conversation with my mother. The cue: I don't want to burden you. So when you're ready to listen and learn how Cogensus uses AI to tackle loneliness and cognitive decline, please welcome to Women Disrupting Tech, Raju Joshi. Raju Joshi, welcome to Women Disrupting Tech. Great to have you. A question I always start with is how you got into your current position, in your case as Chief Clinical Officer of Cogensus.
Thank you so much for having me, Dirkian. I'm very excited to be on your show. Yes, I actually joined the Cogensus team over a little over a year ago. I have a background in biomedical sciences and epidemiology, and I have been in healthcare for over 30 years. I've had the good fortune of working in a variety of different subsectors within healthcare, including academic research, payers, long-term care facilities, supporting them from a pharmacy standpoint. Um, I worked at Medtronic, at Amgen, at a startup with Deloitte. I was with Deloitte Consulting for many years, and this gave me the opportunity to really see healthcare at a very broad level, as well as in depth within each one of those subsectors. And so I was introduced to Cogensus through a mutual friend who indicated that they were looking for somebody with a a clinical background. From that standpoint, I mean having knowledge of how healthcare systems work and also understand the biomedical sciences behind it. So I was advising the company, and then through that process and being a board member, they asked me to join them in a larger capacity as chief clinical officer, to help them build a company and a platform that maintains scientific fidelity and integrity and generates the necessary evidence to support the product's build out and work with clinicians within the community to ensure clinical relevance and utility.
Okay, cool. And what made Cogensus interesting to you personally?
Yeah, so last year I lost two senior members of my family.
Hmm.
My mother-in-law, who is 4'11" and an ICU nurse, was very, very bright and very brave. She suffered from dementia, and I watched her decline initially somewhat slowly, and I thought this was just age-related kind of, you know, cognitive changes to a rapid decline. And then ultimately, we did lose her, as I mentioned, in February. And then my father, somewhat unexpectedly, on Father's Day, and he was a pharmacist, a pharmacologist. He very well understood what was happening to him as well. And even though I've been in this space for 30 years, I have family members who are physicians. I have family members who are uh, attorneys and understand the legal process as it relates to healthcare decisions and healthcare policies. We found ourselves ill equipped to handle their late staged conditions. And by that, I mean, we felt that most of the conversations were centered around what medications were they taking? What was their mood like in the morning? Could we speak with them? Oftentimes, they were too tired to talk towards
Hmm.
those later months, and we just felt this sense of loss. And so, I really wanted to help build Cogensus in a way that helped to not only meet patients where they were, people where they were in their journey, but also help preserve that journey for those that they left behind. And so legacy preservation is one of our unique features, and I'll, given an opportunity, go into that in a little more detail. But I really wanted to just ensure that we were building a product that could um, help better understand a patient's cognitive health, help better support patients who may be socially isolated or feeling lonely, and ensure that we could capture their lives in such a way that it helps preserve their legacy.
Okay, so if I hear you correctly, what triggered you was that all of the, let's say, information exchange was around, let's say, medical things. Like, did they take their medication? Were they feeling tired? Yes or no? Could they speak to you? But
Mhm.
not around, let's say, how does this process work? What steps do I need to take? How can I preempt maybe certain declines that are inevitable because we can't treat them yet, but at least we can sort of signal them early. Is that?
Yes, and just to add to that, I was really compelled by this opportunity to understand what our loved ones were encountering during the course of their day
Hmm.
when I was absent as their caregiver. I was absent because I'm working. They may share some very relevant information and
Hmm.
relevant either contextually from a clinical standpoint or relevant from a personal standpoint, but I'm not there to hear it or see it or engage with them on it. And
Hmm.
so these discrete time points that we have today, maybe it's first thing in the morning, maybe you check in on them during your lunch hour, maybe it's in the evening after work. You've missed a good chunk of their day, and you really don't know what they're experiencing. So Cogensus gives them an opportunity to speak whenever they want, and then you have a transcription of what that engagement was, so that you can then reconnect with them in a more meaningful way and talk to them about a topic that is specifically of interest. And I wanted to build that out and help make that a reality.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like a really meaningful product. Um,
Thank you.
Before we go into the actual solution that Cogensus is building, we're getting older because
Hmm.
of medical advances. So that's the good part. But does that also have a downside? Like I heard you mention loneliness, but are there any other side effects of that? Let's say also maybe also comorbidities, etc.
Absolutely. So, as a normal part of aging, we will start to see some breakdown of some of our systems in some way,
Mm-hmm.
shape, or form. And we hear a lot about diabetes and cardiovascular disease and
Mm-hmm.
some of those, osteoarthritis, some of these conditions that we associate as a normal progression of aging, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
The severity of each one of those conditions obviously is attributed to a variety of different factors: genetics, nutrition, sedentary lifestyle, etc. However, what we do know is that as we're aging, and as we have this opportunity to then, let's say, collect these comorbidities, that contributes to um, the cost associated with treating those comorbidities,
Mm-hmm.
and the cost of medicines, for example, cost of physician appointments. And then sometimes it also creates this shrinking social connection or social circle,
Mm-hmm.
because unfortunately, as we all pass, and in some point in time will pass, our existing circle of friends can shrink, and that creates this sense of social isolation or loneliness. Furthermore, fewer and fewer families are living in a joint family situation. There was a time eons ago, and not too long ago, where many families lived together, and that maintained that social connectedness. Now we see fewer cultures doing that. And we when we think of the cognitive impact that has, the World Health Organization estimated about $1.3 trillion was spent on cognitive issues such as dementia and Alzheimer's in 2019, and that's only expected to grow. And so we anticipate that this is, the natural progression of aging, potential for dementia, and the cost associated with that dementia will lead to um, health system burden and family structure burden.
I have two follow-up questions. One is there a difference between men and women in terms of how cognitive decline develops? Maybe.
Yes. Well, so I mean, it's interesting because, I think in terms of how, from a biological standpoint, I think researchers are trying to understand this. When we think about cortisol levels, for example, that are higher in postmenopausal women,
Mm-hmm.
the impact of cortisol on areas of the brain responsible for our memory, long-term memory, as well as our executive functioning, so the hippocampus and the prefrontal cortex. When
Mm-hmm.
we see the impact of cortisol on these structures, and therefore the impact on average daily living activities, um, it tends to create this difference in the impact on men and the impact on women. But preceding that is just the statistics around um, how many men and women, can I speak to in the US, how many men and women live alone. And we see that 16.2 million uh, people over the age of 65 in the US live alone.
Mm-hmm.
Of that, 10.5 million are female and 5.7 are male or men.
So
So
it's 2-to-1 ratio.
2-to-1 ratio of women who live alone, who are then at a higher risk of social isolation and higher risk of loneliness. And these people are then more susceptible to cognitive decline, cortisol related stress, uh, and a myriad
Does
of
it
other.
always also impact, let's say, the timing of the start of treatment? Because I do know from our previous conversation that you told me something around that people are later to the game
Mhm,
uh, in terms of diagnosis because they
mhm.
are lonely and because they're thinking like it will, yeah, maybe it's normal, maybe it's me.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I thank you for raising that because it is an issue. I think, this does affect women disproportionately as a result of that. And just in a few ways. We talked a little bit about how women are living alone. Women represent 70% of the care hours associated with um, their loved ones, and that creates this sense of delayed health in their own or delayed healthcare in their own health. For
Hmm.
example, maybe they put off going to the doctor even though they have a symptom that they think it's just kind of in the back of their mind. I got to get this checked out. I got to get this checked out. Okay, I'll get to it. I'll get to it because right now I'm busy taking care of everyone else. So what ends up happening is they themselves delay the appointment that in turn potentially presents themselves in a more with a more complex or advanced case of something.
Hmm.
So their diagnosis is therefore delayed, and then the treatments are that much more complex, costly, and ultimately challenging from an outcomes standpoint.
So that also answers my second question, which was around the impact of loneliness. Last question on this part is how much do we understand of cognitive decline right now? And how important is it to get more data on that, more, let's say, contextual information on how this actually works?
Yes, so cognitive decline can be described in a lot of different ways, and it's used colloquially in a lot of different ways. So, for example, they look at age-related cognitive changes, and sometimes someone will say, "I feel a decline" from that standpoint. But what we really wanna do is we wanna focus on the cognitive decline that is associated with changes to someone's, average daily, lifestyle and/or activities. For example, do they experience some memory loss or reduced mental acuity? These things are
Hmm.
very important to pay attention to and
Hmm.
are oftentimes just kind of pushed aside. We push it aside because we're busy. Everyone is very, very busy.
Hmm.
And, you know, aging parents also don't want to, you hear of them saying things like they don't want to burden their children.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
they
I've
don't
heard
want
that
to
many
mention.
times.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then they don't mention these things. And I think that that's a problem that we're trying to solve for as well, because we all interpret importance, relevance in our own way. And that actually impacts how we understand and assess cognitive decline. Because initially, we need to report this information out to our care team, our clinicians, and our caregivers. And if we don't know that this is important, then they're not going to know what to do. And if they're not around to see it happen firsthand, objectively, you know, they're not going to know to report it to their clinicians, and then the clinicians are not going to be able to intervene in time. So it's important for us. We don't really fully understand um, everything that there is to understand about a decline in cognitive health, but we are making such advancements in um, on the biological side, on the medical side. We now need to catch up on the social side and understand how social determinants of health impact cognitive decline, and that's something that we are focusing on at Cogensus.
So with that, let's now shift to the solution that you're building. Can you describe what you're building? Because when I heard about it, I was like, okay, I got to speak to you.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're actually building an AI-enabled platform
Hmm.
that people can speak with. So there
Hmm.
will be an avatar that somebody will be talking into or talking to, and we want to engage people in conversation. Just get them talking. So, that they're not talking only about, the medication that they are supposed to take. And it's
Hmm.
not just about, hey, did you take your medicine this morning, Durkian, or not? Did you take your, hypertension medicine? Did you take your diabetes medicine? Their lives are so much fuller than that.
Hmm.
And so engaging them, we by engaging them, we hope to alleviate loneliness, which is the subjective definition of being isolated, uh, and also provide certain trends and patterns in their cognitive health around memory, recall, verbal fluency, all within this context of loneliness, so that the care team and the caregivers have a better understanding of what's actually happening to the patient. What do they really
Okay.
feel?
So do you then also provide diagnostics? No, right?
We are not a diagnostic, so we are not diagnosing dementia and we are not diagnosing Alzheimer's. What we
Hmm.
are doing is we are providing insights around cognitive health that could help clinicians with their diagnostics around Alzheimer's or cognitive decline.
Okay, so it's more, let's say, qualitative
Hmm.
data about quality of life, about how people are feeling, and with that, I guess also trend information that you're
Yeah.
feeding into the system. So, what is the result for the, let's say, the caregivers? What can they do earlier or better as a result of this?
Hmm. So let's just take a scenario where you are busy at work all day
Hmm.
and you call your mother in the
Hmm.
evening after work and
Yep.
you say, "Hi, mom. How was your day? How did everything go? What did you do?" And she responds, "Oh, fine. It's the usual. Nothing new. All's good." And you're now left to take that at face value.
Hmm.
Now, we know our brain is a wonderful organ and that it will compensate in any way, shape, or form that it can, right?
Hmm.
And so, if let's say, for example, we forgot something, it may not relay that as a significant issue. So what?
Hmm.
You forgot
Yeah.
about something. Big deal.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things, is it really a bad thing?
Hmm.
And the answer may be not. Maybe it's not a big deal. But perhaps that lack of information or the lack of recall when prompted as a question could offer insights to something that is meaningful. So, what do I mean by that? Let's say, for example, you run into somebody, and in the course of this conversation with your mother, you say, "How was your day?" And she says, "Fine." And you say, "Oh, great. I ran into Mr. Johansson, you know?" And she just pauses. She's like, "I don't know who this person is." And this is someone who, you know, you know, she absolutely should know because this is someone that she has engaged with routinely for many, many, many years. But suddenly she doesn't recall who this person is. If you don't know to ask the question or you don't mention Mr. Johansson,
Hmm.
she would not give you that response. And so you would not have ever even noticed that there was something missing. You would have just kind of gone about your day and said,
Hmm.
"Okay, oh, great. I'm glad everything is fine. I'm glad you're doing all right, mom. Call me if you need anything and I'll check
Yeah.
on you in the morning or my kids are fine and everything's going well here." That's it.
And
So,
sometimes those discussions, by the way, do happen, and they have a role as well. So
yeah.
maybe not to make people feel too guilty, but once in every while, it's good to at least. drill down a bit on, especially if you met people that you both know very well.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
it's a good check, let's say.
Yeah, it's a good check, right? And then the other thing that, and conversely, let's say, for example, she was thinking about, maybe a childhood experience, a trip that
Mm,
she had taken with her family.
hmm.
And for whatever reason, that came up in her thoughts that day.
Yeah.
But you would not have known that because she may not think that's important enough to share with you. So she may, using Cogensis, have a conversation, because Cogensis may prompt her. Can you recall a time in your life that you had gone on a trip or something of that nature that was very memorable? And she
Hmm.
might answer that question in that moment and say, "Oh, yes, I remember. We went to Bruges, for
Hmm.
example. We had a lovely time." Okay, well, now when you come home and you see the um, dashboard that you would have access to if she gave you access to this dashboard. You have access to this, and you see in the transcript that she was recalling a trip she took with her family to Bruges when she was 22 years old. And you may be able to engage her at that moment and say, "Mom, tell me about this trip that you took. What was that like? Where did you
Hmm.
go? What did you see? Did you go to the Abbey? Did you go to the center? What tell me more about it." And that might spark a very different conversation with your mom beyond the, "Oh, I'm fine. Nothing new today. Everything
Hmm.
was, you know."
Yeah, it also sort of makes people feel heard
They're
as and
heard,
and and
hopefully.
and and, and valued.
Yes, and alleviating that
Yeah,
loneliness, right? So
yeah.
they understand that you're connecting with them. You are making a more meaningful connection with them as a person, and not just
Okay.
as your mother that you're taking care of.
Yeah. So this solution, it's AI based.
Mhm.
Um, how does it differ from, let's say, sort of a chatbot or well, reminder app? That's sort of clear, but is it a sort of chat function, or how does this work? How does the interaction with the lonely person?
Yeah, so it's not necessarily just a chatbot, right? Because there are a lot of analytics that go on in the background.
Hmm.
We do prompt you to engage with the with Cogensis, and obviously, the more you use Cogensis, the more comfortable you become with the conversation. It doesn't feel contrived initially. It might feel very weird, but
Yeah, it's the same with Hey Siri on an Apple. The first time you used it, everyone was probably like, "Okay, I wonder what is going to happen now," and
yes,
now everyone is doing it.
and it feels natural almost
Yeah.
now. So, we have intentionally used an avatar instead of a human form because we don't want there to be unhealthy connections with this. We don't want them relying on this uh, system as if it was an actual person. They need to be aware that this is not a physician that they are talking to, as an example, but that this is part of their care team now
Hmm.
that they can have a conversation with, journal, talk about anything that they want to talk about. However, on the back end, unlike a chatbot who may be just kind of recording an answer and then just spitting out an answer, asking prompted questions, we are looking for those trends on the back end to see whether or not there's a change in verbal fluency. How many words are they actually using to respond to a question? How long are they thinking about the response before they give you a response? Is that considered consistent with what we would expect for someone of their age and condition? Or is it an outlier in some way, shape, or form? So these
Yeah, and
types of
also I
insights
think
differ.
it can detect that people all of a sudden start taking longer for their answers,
Exactly. So
which
we're
is
thinking
sort of delta compared to
what would be
and as a
considered a
result,
norm
yeah.
in that population or in that subpopulation. Like, what would we expect in terms of a normal pause before we respond? Do we see any frustration? Is there any sense of frustration? Because that's very telling as well.
Is there sort of sensitivity or how do you say sentiment analysis built in?
There will be, yes, a little bit of sentimental analysis and understanding, what is this person's emotion? How are they responding? Semantically, syntactically, from an auditory standpoint, we're listening to hear whether there is frustration in the voice or not. If they express concerns around being lonely, if they don't say this because they don't want to burden their children, but they feel safe talking into a computer who they don't necessarily think is, um, being burdened per se. The quality of conversations may change. So we think it's much more than what the chatbot provides,
Yeah,
from in terms of functionality, and it's much more than a medication administration reminder. Because remember, people are so much more than just the medications that they're on.
yeah,
That
absolutely.
information is important. We
Mm,
don't, and it's not to say that that won't be part of the solution. That is there, but it's so much more than just that.
okay. Um, I was wondering about one thing, because yes, it's incredibly intelligent to have that conversation, even and to sort of being able to listen to people what they have to say and maybe engage in a conversation, even if there's not a human in the room. Can this? The word that came to my mind is how do we avoid that this is seen as spying or snooping on people?
Right. And this is a challenge, I think, for all passive listening devices, right?
Hmm.
And sort of um, virtual assistants, etc. Over time, I think over time, you start to build trust with Siri or with any other virtual assistant and or application.
Hmm.
And the we need to be responsible in terms of what is it that we're asking, why are we asking certain questions, what information is going to be relevant, um, and perhaps they will find that talking into a computer system is strange. They may initially think it's a little intrusive. However, realistically, if we take an example of someone living in a care facility as an example, or a care community, they are often uh, asked questions by staff, by their children, by others, and they may feel that those questions are a little intrusive. For example, my mom, who again, she became a widow somewhat unexpectedly.
Hmm.
Um, and when we started asking her questions, how are you doing? How are you feeling? What are you eating these days? How are you sleeping? Did you shower? We were trying to we didn't want to come out and say, were you depressed? Because we knew that would trigger her in other ways, right? Like, no,
Uh,
I'm not depressed. My mother is a very strong woman, and she does not want to um, feel helpless or feel dependent on anybody. She values her independence.
yeah.
And so initially, when we were asking her these questions, she sat us down and she says, I do not want to be coddled. I do not want you to ask me these questions. It is, I'm eating fine. It's none of your business what I eat, what I don't. I mean, she doesn't drink alcohol, so we were not worried about that.
Hmm.
Um, but we were just more worried about her cocooning herself and just not engaging with anybody and not
Hmm.
eating and not taking her medicines and all of that. And she just kind of said, "You've never asked me these questions before. You never asked me if I took my medicine or not. You assumed I took my medicine. Why would I not take my medicine now? Stop doing that." She was very angry initially, And so she felt that this human engagement was intrusive.
Hmm.
But for whatever reason, when she talks to Siri, she actually talks to Siri, and it's like, I don't know. I feel like um she just kind of gets it off her chest,
Yeah.
perhaps. but
So
doesn't feel like she's burdening anybody while doing that. And so
is
it
it
doesn't
then,
feel as intrusive.
yeah, is
Yeah.
it then also something around that it's sometimes easier to talk to about emotions
Stranger.
to a complete stranger?
Stranger, totally. I was just about to use the example of those people who sit next to you on the airplane and tell you their entire life story in the first
Yeah,
15 minutes of a 10-hour flight. And you know, for the longest time, I was like, why would anybody do that? And then I realized that you're sitting next to somebody for 10 hours and you just want to know who that person is, or they want you to know who that person is. Like, I'm not one to share my life story with the person next to me, but I'm often the person who is on the receiving end of someone's life story.
yeah.
And then it goes into, and by the end of it, I feel like sometimes I'm a marriage therapist, but um, you know, I mean, the
Oh
conversation.
yeah, yeah,
But,
yeah,
uh, but, uh, but I think it's all about this need to feel socially connected, right? And so
uh-huh.
I really think that that's at the end of the day what it is what is the root, what's it all stems from.
So trust is a big factor, for elderly people, especially for elderly people. And also, what you see is that they're, let's say, less inclined to adopt tech,
Mhm,
how, or at least be more skeptical around it.
mhm.
How do you deal with that?
Yeah. Well, as they should be, right? As we all should be, because it's a, you know, trust but verify kind of a situation. We have to
Yeah.
win their trust. And, you know, we intend to do that by keeping the usability of this product very simple. The trust and the technical literacy is very important. Now, from an aging standpoint, age tech seems to fall into a single category as anyone over the age of, ironically, 55 or over, which to me does not feel like very old. You know, I personally don't like to be put in, from a tech savviness standpoint, don't like to be put into the same category as, let's say, my 92-year-old father-in-law, right? Because I'm involved in tech. I'm working with tech. And
Yeah.
so you'll have, you know, you'll have folks who are over the age of 60, let's say, or 60, you know, 62 maybe even, who are executives within large organizations and large corporations, and they are engaging with tech all the time. Now, are they in the back end writing code for AI platforms and machine learning algorithms and RPA, robotic processing algorithms and so forth? Maybe some of them are, but not everybody is doing that. And so, you know, when we think about AI agents and so forth, maybe they're not engaging with AI agents to the extent that everybody is, but they may have more knowledge of it than, let's say, my 92-year-old father-in-law does, and he's adorable. He's a wonderful, wonderful person, and he's curious. So we have to win the trust of people who are within this spectrum. People who, like my father-in-law, may be naive about technology and may be interested in learning more and be less critical, and
Hmm.
he may actually trust the technology more inherently because of that. And others who are, let's say, working professionals who are now retiring, who have knowledge of technology and are perhaps even more skeptical because they know of the potential negative ramifications of technology. So it's up to us to win their trust, and I think we're going to do that effectively by focusing on the usability of the product and keeping it simple to use, and also by having very specific use cases around, you know, what problem we're trying to solve for, and namely cognitive health insights and loneliness.
Okay. So the question that I forgot and now that came back is, we talked for quite a while and just now about your personal experience,
Mhm.
especially with your parents. How did that does that help you in the development of this software?
It
Or
helps me tremendously.
yeah.
It helps me tremendously because I see myself as a user of this. So I can
Mm,
take not just um, hypothetical scenarios, but I really understand the journey that the
mhm,
user will take. So what is the workflow, if you will, the
mhm.
patient's journey, the caregiver's journey, all of these different personas that we will then be using in order to as users and segmenting as users and um, really understanding what that feels like, what it felt like, what it's like for the surviving parent, uh, and for the caregivers, and then what information do I want to relay to the care team, her care team, or his care team. It gives me that firsthand experience, and so I consider myself very fortunate to be part of this team and to be solving this problem.
Yeah, and I think there's a long way still ahead.
Mhm.
So I want to switch a bit to from the current state and
Mhm.
the problem you're solving in the near future to, let's say, later stage. In our prep call, we talked about first let's say deal with loneliness in elderly people, people in nursing homes. But we also discussed the impact loneliness may have on veterans, on athletes, on maybe
Yes,
other groups.
yes.
How do you see Cogensus evolving from here?
I think that Cogensus, especially as we start to understand some of the cognitive health insights, is really well positioned, will be really, I should say, will be well positioned to help these other, um, groups who may be experiencing either loneliness and or dementia-like symptoms and signs. CTE is a big issue in athletes who have repeated um, injury to the point where they develop this encephalopathy that resembles many times, presents itself many times as cognitive decline, and just a lack of executive functioning, changes in behavior and mood and so forth. And so we can easily see an opportunity to engage with professional athletes who may be at risk for CTE, as an example.
So maybe could you describe what CTE is for the non-medical medically schooled among us?
Yes, absolutely. So CTE is considered chronic traumatic encephalopathy, and this is a result of repeated impact to the head. And we can see this in, potentially like rugby players or hockey
Football.
players or football players. You hear about it more in the NFL, for example.
Yeah,
But there are a wide variety of sports that where people incur these injuries,
yeah. Also soccer, eh?
and soccer
Because
as well. So it
people are
damages the brain.
soccer players are heading the ball, and often
Yes.
with quite a bit of impact it has on the skull, but also on the brain.
Yes, exactly. And so this condition leads to many times dementia. And so once we start to see the parallels of cognitive decline or cognitive health and we have an opportunity to provide insights into that for that group of people as well,
Hmm.
and hopefully change behavior and maybe even um, drive innovation in gear and tools that could be used to and protocols that could be used to you
Maybe
know
also rule
help.
sets.
And rule sets, yeah, absolutely. Policies, procedures, protocols of how to treat patients, or who may have, and concussion protocols, for example. When I say
Hmm.
protocols, concussion protocols, things of that nature, and what to look for. It's a lot of this is patient education and family education too. What do you look for? So
Hmm.
somebody is, let's just say someone is agitated, and it's like, why are you agitated? Okay, is it because you're bored because
Hmm.
you're no longer playing
Yeah,
a sport that you love, or is there something else that's going on?
yeah.
Who
So
knows,
would
right?
it for how would this work for veterans? Is that then more in the PTSS scope?
For veterans, those who are repeating or recalling a negative memory
Uh-huh.
of something that happened in wartime, they may feel that they want to socially isolate. Either they're embarrassed, or they. One of our co-founders is a veteran, 2 tour of duty in Afghanistan, and our COO. And in speaking with other folks who are veterans, these are people who have seen a lot, have endured a lot, may suffer from some form of anxiety, may suffer from some form of depression, may in turn isolate themselves as a result. And when they isolate themselves, they're at a much greater risk for developing dementia.
Yeah,
Loneliness alone has shown, like according to the American Academy of Sciences 317-page report, loneliness, will increase, has a 59% increased risk of functional decline. Let that sink in. That's huge. Well, that's huge. And so it's not just about people who are already diagnosed with dementia or already diagnosed with Alzheimer's. There is a social component to this that is putting people at risk for all of these other medical conditions and outcomes. The odds ratios are incredible.
how can Cogensus deploy AI to serve humanity in the long run beyond the cognitive capabilities and signaling diseases like Alzheimer, like dementia?
Yeah, so I think AI in general has great potential if it's developed and applied correctly.
Uh-huh.
Um, I think that applications like Cogensus that are geared to improve loneliness and or social connection have an opportunity to provide those insights around a myriad of conditions, not just
Mm-hmm.
cognitive decline.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is an opportunity to improve care management for patients, to help clinicians with data and insights that will hopefully reduce their burden and burnout. We've all heard of the extreme burnout that our clinicians, who are just such integral members of our society, are encountering and facing as a result of the demands placed on them. So there is an opportunity to help them, provide them those insights so that they are not in turn so taxed that they
Mm-hmm.
are making uh, clinical errors or clinical judgment errors. That has an impact on overall outcomes for people of all different um, diagnoses and conditions. So when we're thinking about humanity is such a big
Yeah.
scale, right? That, if we want to solve world peace and solve a humanistic problem, we it's going to take time to get there. Cogensus, I think, alongside other AI platforms, has great potential if it's developed correctly. It has the right governance, pays attention to ethics, ensures that benefits outweigh risks. Um,
How do you do that?
how do we do that? So we have to have a very clear understanding of what our use cases are, know what our swim lanes are,
Mm-hmm.
know what problem we're solving for, avoid overreaching in the sense that um, we want to take calculated risk, but we need to understand how the risk compounds, and so that it's not just transaction for transaction, but how does each risk within each transaction compound to a point where it may outweigh the potential benefit to the patient. So for example, um, if the potential benefit to the patient is that we are able to provide insights um, to clinicians, the potential risk is that the information that is provided is either not applied in the manner in which it was intended,
Mm-hmm.
or is unused altogether. So so what? What's the impact of that? And so if it is not applied as intended, then we have to educate and have to design so that the clinicians understand from a human factors standpoint, they know what to do with the information. Same thing goes for caregivers. Same thing goes for the patients themselves. We want patients to have agency over their own life. And when we say we want people to age with dignity and age in place with dignity, we want them
Mhm.
to have that agency. And so we hope that this will provide that benefit is agency.
Yeah, and I think agency is something we all want to have until we
Mhm.
die.
Yes, absolutely. So we have to think about this responsibly. What are we doing so that we can provide the right information at the right time so that clinicians and caregivers can intervene appropriately when appropriate and can leave them alone, leave people alone when they don't want to be, interrogated
Yeah,
constantly.
yeah.
So it's the balance, it's finding that balance. But, overall, I think that we need to make responsible choices. It's an evolving field. We're not there yet. This is very nascent in its applications, and we need to just make responsible choices as a human community, and not just simply driven by individual ambitions. So, uh,
So how do you balance that? I mean,
it-
how do you avoid that it becomes driven by personal ambition rather than solving the bigger issue? Is there some sort of is that done in terms of governance, in terms of how information is protected?
right. Well, I mean, I think it's a combination of all of them, right? If we look at the World Health Organization and some of the agreements that they have in place to help solve global health issues, this is going to take. This is a if we're still speaking about humanity as a whole, it's a huge undertaking, and it cannot be solved by one. It should not be solved by one person alone. It needs to be solved by uh, by all members of the community, right? And
Yeah.
representing all members of the community. So understanding voices that need to be heard, having an empathetic approach to understanding, but having an empathetic approach to approaching cognitive decline or some patient's condition, understanding what benefit looks like, and agreeing to that, having a charter in place that agrees to the better good, the good of the community over one's individual ambitions, I think will be important. It's hard to really fight against human nature, right? Because
It is.
humans are selfish by nature, I think. And so it's hard to kind of fight that. You have to really want to solve a problem for a community, and that's what we're trying to do as broader ecosystem.
Yeah. So I want to talk about the big thing of humankind and selfishness is money for a
Mhm,
bit.
mhm.
Uh, you are going to be part of an accelerator soon.
Yeah,
That's
we will.
the start of your fundraising journey as well.
Mhm.
Um, so my podcast started when I read about 2%, the 2% of funding that goes to female founders. Um, I was wondering what your journey has been like as a co-founder of a medtech startup and getting funding and getting accepted into this accelerator.
Yeah, we are so excited to be part of the Caduceus Health Accelerator, Caduceus Ventures Accelerator. Um, from what we are told, this was a very competitive process, and so we're delighted to be part of this cohort. And so, in terms of fundraising in our experience, we are in an economic time that is a bit challenging. Equity is expensive right now. People
Hmm.
are a little bearish at the moment, but we hope that this will be changing soon. If we had, what we've been told over and over again is that, the VCs that we've spoken with angels that we've spoken with, family offices that we've spoken with, love the concept. They love the product. They love the team. And now it's a matter of timing. We're raising $1 million, which is not
Hmm.
exorbitant, so that we can build out this platform. We have the team in place, including the development team. We have letters of interest from dozens of entities, including state governments, providers, health systems,
Hmm.
payers, senior communities, etc. We would like to continue engaging with these investors to invest in age tech and see the opportunity that we present, the problem that we're solving for, the solution that we've created, and the benefit to our customers.
Okay. What kind of investors would you like to attract? Because medtech is difficult anyway.
Right.
You're in software, so maybe that's a bit easier, and it's AI. Well,
Mhm. I mean, we are honestly, we are working with health specific investors. We are working with generalists as well who have more of an impact, who want to, impact investing and are interested in social impact. So I would say people who are interested in solving a healthcare problem and people who are interested in making a social impact. Those are the two that we tend to attract, and so those are the ones that we've been speaking with. But this has broad reach. There's a broad reach here and broad scale implications of building out an AI platform like Cogensus. So the opportunity exists for a variety of different investor types, if you
yeah.
will.
So, and have you been involved in the pitching process?
Yes.
So, what is your experience there?
The experience has been generally very favorable. What we
Hmm.
have found is because we're pre-product,
Hmm.
most of the conversations have been kind of like this. We love the idea, we love the team, we love the product. You're a little too early for us because we tend to invest in Series A or Series B,
Hmm.
or maybe even seed stage funding. So we think you need to be involved with an accelerator, or you need to go through, some pre-seed angel funding, et cetera. And then once you have that, then go ahead and reach out to us again. And so we actually have a short list of VCs who have asked us to contact them. We also have a short list of technology companies that have asked us to contact them again because they are interested in integrating our product into their technology platform. And so, they have actually been reaching out to us. Just to kind of keep tabs on the progress that we're making. So we're hopeful, very hopeful, that this admission into the Caduceus Venture Accelerator is going to catapult our progress and enable those conversations to move forward.
Well, I hope so too. Any
Thank
tips
you.
for other female founders who want to try?
Yes, do it. Just do it. Get out there and and build something. There is a need to have the female perspective in the work that is being created. I can speak from a healthcare standpoint because that's my career, but I can see this apply, female founders in every single industry um, have an opportunity to go out there and do it. Don't be afraid.
Sounds like a great place to move to my last question,
Sure.
which is I'm on a mission to make inclusion in tech the new normal by the end of 2032. Based on your experience, what is the one bold move we all need to make to get there?
Hmm. Um, yes, thank you for this question. Honestly, I feel like we just need to, and I use the word "just" in air quotes because I realize this is not a just, but shift our mindset to allow inclusion. I think that the framework or the process of innovation isn't a sex-based trait or a culturally driven issue. We
Hmm.
identify a problem, we want to create a solution using calculated risk to solve that problem, and we want to benefit our customers. That's the process. It doesn't matter whether it shouldn't matter, right? From a process standpoint,
Uh,
it's the same.
yeah.
So
And
what
outcome
is
as
it?
well.
That's right. And so, the in my opinion, the issue is really just changing our perception and getting out of our own way. We talk about failing fast in innovation, and if this is an accepted principle, then why should we place caveats on it based around the sex or the ethnicity of the team? What difference does it make? Right? If you are going to apply a basic principle of failing fast in innovation because you have an innovation because you've identified a problem, you have created a solution using calculated risk, and you are potentially benefiting a customer and will produce good outcomes. What difference does it make if the founder is female or male? If that's the only factor, then I think perception is the issue.
Okay, so change the perception and also
Change your mind shift. Yeah.
change then our own mindset.
Yes, it's a change. In my
Uh,
opinion, we need to shift our mindset to allow for inclusion. Full stop.
Sounds like a great place to close. Raju Joshi,
Thank you so
thank you.
much.
Yeah, thank you for being a guest and thank you for all the wisdom and for sharing what the wonderful work that you do with Cogensus with us. Um, if
Thank you.
people want to learn more about you or connect with you or learn more about Cogensus, where would you like to send them?
Well, you can learn more about Cogensus at cogensus.com, www.cogensus.com. You
Hmm.
can reach me by email at raju@cogensus.com. And I would be delighted to hear from your listeners. I'm very grateful to you for what you do and for driving this mission that you have to make inclusion in tech the new norm. I think you said by the end of 2032. Thank you for doing that. I know you're busy and I know you could have done 100,000 other things, but I appreciate and I'm grateful that you've felt this was an important enough issue to take it on.
Yeah,
So thank you for doing that.
you're more than welcome. We'll include all the links in the show notes. So once again, Raju Joshi, thank you very much for being my guest. Listeners, thank you very much for listening. And until the next episode, keep being awesome. Well, that's it for episode 112 of Women Disrupting Tech with Raju Joshi on how Cogensus uses AI to tackle loneliness and cognitive decline. Raju and I hope that you found our conversation as inspiring and insightful as we intended it to be. And if you have any questions for Raju, please leave them in the comments on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube. I'll make sure you get an answer. If you'd like to learn more about Raju and Cogensus, there are links in the show notes, and as usual, you can find the show notes at womendisruptingtech.blog, and that link is also in the description. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a rating or a review on Apple or Spotify. Leaving a rating or a review helps new listeners find the podcast and supports my guests by giving them a bigger platform. If you're a regular listener, please make sure you follow Women Disrupting Tech on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, or YouTube. Following Women Disrupting Tech is a simple, zero cost way to support Raju and my other guest in making inclusion in tech the new normal by the end of 2032. If you'd like to learn more about Women Disrupting Tech, you can follow us on social media. You can find us everywhere at Women Disrupting Tech. There's also a Substack page for Women Disrupting Tech. On there, you'll find in-depth stories and behind-the-scenes insights from each episode, plus the trends that I've spotted across 120 plus conversations so far. So don't forget to subscribe to Women Disrupting Tech on Substack. Finally, if you want to connect with me, please reach out via email dirkjan@womendisruptingtech.blog or connect on LinkedIn. Just search for my name and you'll find me. With that, I wish you a wonderful day. I hope to see you in the next episode. And until then, Keep being awesome.